Hello everyone. Thank you all for joining. My name is Yulia Tymoshenko. I am a senior business analyst manager at EPAM Poland. With EPAM already for more than 7 years, and I'm part of the BA and Product Management Global Practice community. And I have been honored to introduce our BA Excellence Conference headliner, the speaker who will inspire you to fall in love with business analysis if you have not already. Laura Brandenburg, ACBA, CBAP, internationally recognized leader known for helping mid-career professionals start and succeed in business analysis careers. She is the founder of Bridging the Gap, the best-selling author of How to Start a Business Analysis Career, and the creator of the Business Analysis Blueprint Certification Program and the Applied Certification of Business Analyst. Laura brings nearly 20 years of experience in the business analysis profession, filling several different full-time business analyst positions, as well as contributing as a consultant, hiring manager, trainer, and career coach. She believes that we build our profession one business analyst at a time, and her life purpose is to help others achieve more confidence and live their best life. Laura, before you will start, may I ask you a couple of questions?
Of course, and thank you so much for having me and for that warm introduction. Great to be here with you, Yulia.
We are really very happy to see you over here.
Yeah.
So, Laura, you have so many ongoing activities, engagements, and consulting. May I ask you why you decided to join our Be Excellent conference? What attracted you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when when I was originally reached out to present, I was so surprised, to be honest, because I don't consider myself a technical expert in artificial intelligence or AI or chat GPT. I had shared a little bit of content early on about it, but so my initial reaction was almost like, well, there's space for other people here, right? But then the context of the request was what you shared about the passion that I showed for the BA role, like how I could still, or how we still saw the BA role as relevant even in an AI world. And I realized I had a lot to share from both my philosophy background and just my passion for BA, and that would be it would be an exciting thing and an intellectual opportunity for me to mesh those worlds together and come up with a presentation. And so I got really excited about the idea, and always I just love to be part of conferences like this and have the opportunity to connect with business analysts across the world. And it's part of that mission of building our profession one business analyst at a time. So thank you for having me here.
Thank you for your explanation. I believe the passion in business analysis that's all bring us together over here. Maybe one small question from my side, one more.
Mm-hmm.
Let us talk about behind the scene. Who is Laura outside of business analysis world? Could you please share with us your passion, day-to-day life, maybe some charity projects?
Yeah. So I have two young daughters. So they're not as young anymore, but 9 and 11. We live in North Carolina 9 months a year, and then Northern Michigan. So those from not in the US, it's about a 17-hour drive apart. So I feel like we have this transitional lifestyle where we move up to Northern Michigan for the summer, which is where we're at right now. And that enables us to rent our house out in North Carolina, which is like an alternative income stream for us as well. So I think that's just a different kind of lifestyle. We always get questions about that. And I'm really, we're water people, and that was really, we prioritize being able to be on the water, be on the beach, enjoy being outdoors, and that's part of our lifestyle as well. So just a little bit about me behind the scenes.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
So everyone, please make yourself comfortable and enjoy Navigation the AI Revolution: 5 Essential Mindsets for Business Analysis to Thrive. You're welcome.
Yes, thank you so much. And I also just want to say, as an introduction, I'm always a thirsty, like I drink a lot of water when I speak. But today we have a lot of smoke here from all the wildfires that are happening in Canada. It has whipped in. So I might be drinking a little bit more than normal. I can definitely feel the effect of that. So just FYI, if I cough or sneeze, or I'm drinking extra water, that's a little bit why. So let's see, just a little bit about, sorry, let me get back to where I can see move forward my slides. So I already had a beautiful introduction from Yulia, so I don't feel like I need to reference this much anymore. Although I will just say the one thing we didn't talk about on here was my book, How to Start a Business Analyst Career. So for those of you who are getting into the profession, or maybe know people who are getting into the profession, that's another great resource to be checking out as well. And as I said a little bit in our conversation, I really feel like I am here today because of the passion that I have for the business analysis role. And one thing, I also spent several years in academia studying philosophy and what it means to be human, the theory of language and thinking. I was really more into the continental philosophy, though I did a lot of the analytical philosophy as well. Actually did my senior thesis in college, on the truth value of metaphor. So whether a metaphorical statement can actually have truth value or not. So, I mean, that's a little bit esoteric, but I also feel like it's so related to artificial intelligence, and what we are experiencing now today were things that I was talking about and learning about 20, 25 years ago in an abstract, theoretical way. And we are seeing the reality of some of that technology in our actual living practical lives today. And so I'm going to bring in that philosopher background because I feel like it's part of the unique value that I can add and provide. And I also just want to emphasize that I am not a technical AI expert, and you have had some amazing talks from people who know way more about machine learning and artificial intelligence and the technologies behind AI. And so this is, I think, especially since we're closing the conference, it's a great time to just take a step back and look at the bigger picture. I'm not here to answer your questions about how to better use ChatGPT. I am learning every day and still experimenting with the tool, and I'm very much on that journey with you. I'm really here today to just kind of invite us into a higher level thinking and discussion about what it means to be a business analyst in this exciting time, and perhaps a little bit of the philosophy behind artificial intelligence and what that means for us in our society, in our culture. So that's really what I'm trying to bring forward in our talk today. So one of the things that I listed as a question in the description of this talk was, will AI change everything, or is it quote unquote just a new tool? And I would just like you to reflect on your answer to this question. And I was hoping to be able to see responses in the chat. I know that's not available, but if you do want to share in the chat, I will definitely check in on your answers later. But what's your response to this question? And also, what do you feel as a reaction? What comes up for you when I pose this question to you? Right. So I just want you to witness, how did you feel in your body when I asked that question? Was there some tension, some uncertainty, some fear of getting the answer wrong, perhaps even a little bit of curiosity about the validity of the question, right? And whether, is this a yes or no question? Do I have to choose one or the other? Right. So just kind of will AI change everything, or is it just a new tool? And what I want to say is this idea of this either or thinking is actually something that I have learned over the past year. When we're presented with questions like this, I actually think it's an invalid question, right? So, and that is because this either or thinking that we can get into is a trauma response. It's a reaction based on fear. When we are asked a question like this, it's we need to choose one or the other, and we have to get it right? And the idea that there is only one answer to that question, and that getting this answer somehow wrong puts you in a vulnerable position, is the kind of that sense of, if you had a bit of tension in your body, or kind of a bit of fear that popped up, or just a little bit of what is she talking about? That's what's at the root of that. And the reality is, often, even when we're posed with these either or questions, there are multiple shades of gray. There are multiple potential answers. There's always at least a third answer that usually rises above the question, right? And the reality is just much more nuanced than that either or type of thinking. So witness as well what comes up with this idea that perhaps AI changes everything, right? When I first heard somebody say this, it was maybe about 6 months ago. I was in a mastermind, so a close group of people, and someone I really, really respected, who I've known for years, was like, Laura, this is not just a new technology advancement, it changes everything. And I was I felt a visceral reaction in my body. I froze, and I felt already I'm behind, right? There's this impending sense of doom, something bad is going to happen. I have already missed the boat, and others are already so far ahead of me that there's no way that I would catch up. And so in that state of fear, no, I couldn't even hear what comes next. I couldn't get into curiosity and creativity, and all the business analysis mindsets and skill sets that would allow me to really be this is exciting, right? It was a state of fear. And it's unlikely that those of you here at this conference who've been through the last 2 days are really in this lived experience right now, right? You are way more knowledgeable and prepared than the vast majority of business analysts out there about how to leverage AI in your business analysis work. But that experience or something similar might be what got you here, right? And I guarantee that there are still people out in the world who, like your stakeholders, like perhaps the BAs on your team that haven't wanted to use ChatGPT yet even, right? That are still living in this fear. And so we need to understand that they may be holding on to whatever helps them feel safe, because this fear of changing everything is so acute. Now, again, I really feel like there's a more nuanced answer to this. Yes, AI changes everything, but the potential is so vast, right? And so what I do see, and this really leads us to mindset number one, which is just to let go of the fear. Because what this might do is motivate you to overwork, to take on responsibilities outside of what you really want to be doing. Like, I personally believe that AI is not just a new tool, right? It is more than just like a new add-on technology. It is, of course, it's like weaving its way, and there is an undercurrent in which it is part of a bigger transformation, and there's something bigger that is going to happen as a result of the technologies that we're starting to see that are made available. Right? But it's not going to happen overnight. There's an emergence and a transformation period. The urgency is to become curious and explore, but we don't need to get worked up about being left behind in the short-term future. Okay, so when we say let go of the fear, what does that mean? It's for yourself, right? So first for yourself, like embracing, yes, a lot of things could be changing, and I have the capacity to be part of that change, right? So the urgency is to be curious and explore, not to have to figure everything out all at once. But also for others, right? So how can we help others disarm that sense of fear? So what can we do to educate people to be really careful with our language and how we talk about the potential of AI so that we're not causing more fear? And that means, to this last point, especially how we relate to others. We certainly don't want to be the ones perpetuating fear and using some of these fear-based tactics to kind of motivate people around this. And it's really, really easy to slip into. And so just something I think to pay attention to as we move forward, especially as those of you who have been here all for this session and are really now relative experts in the tool sets and the knowledge, and have way more capacity and knowledge around what the potential is. We want to make sure we're not leading into that with fear towards others. Okay, and that leads us to mindset number 2, which is to lean into your humanity. And I think part of the reason that AI brings up so much fear is that we have equated our intellect with our humanity, right? So if technology exists that is way more powerful than human thinking, what does that really mean to be human, right? What we see these examples. One of the things I love seeing, but also think is kind of funny, is when people are like, look at how I got Chat GPT to do something ridiculous, right? And look at how, in like, it's sort of this separation, right? Like, we think this tool is so smart, but here is how I can kind of confuse it, right? Or here is a limit that it can't do something that's logical and human, right? Like, we're trying to test those boundaries, which is a really normal thing to do. Think about how a 2 or 3-year-old test boundaries, right? We're all in that curiosity mode. How far can I take this tool? How far can I stretch it? How far can I use it? And what can I do to kind of get it to screw up? Right. But also there's a sense of superiority that comes out when we do that, right? Like, oh, look at that. Like, I'm actually smarter than the tool in this case. So those are still, I want to just say, like, those are still intellectual limits. And I am sure, like, a year from now, possibly a month from now, right, some of those examples AI is going to figure out. So it's sort of it's a law of diminishing returns. Like, we can continue to find those places where, when we lean on our intellect as the equation of our humanity, AI is going to eventually eclipse that. And I want to just bring this quote up. I'm sure you've heard this before. I think, therefore I am, way back in 1630s, right? So I bring this up because these are not new conversations, right, that we're having today. These philosophy, in the realm of philosophy, people have been having these conversations for centuries. Really, we could go back even further, to, before in the BC area, when we had Socrates and Plato and Aristotle all having conversations about what does it mean to be human, right? But this quote, I think, so perfectly articulates this. I think, therefore I am, this conflation of humanity with intellect, and really intellectual power, our brain's ability to analyze and think, is only one aspect of our humanity. So I also wanted to bring up this idea of the Turing test, and this is pretty popular philosophy at this point, but so it might be new, it might be something that you have definitely seen before or heard about before, but it was way back in 1950, right? So when we think of the history of AI, a lot of people kind of talk back of like things that have happened in the 2000s. I think it way predates that. So, to the invention of initial computer technology. And the Turing test is an essential test of the machine's ability to exhibit intelligent behavior equivalent to or indistinguishable from that of a human. So this was proposed by Alan Turing back in 1950, and it's been used as a benchmark for machine intelligence ever since. So the idea is, like, if you put the machine behind a room and then you put a human being behind a room, would somebody who was having a dialogue conversation, like through a text chat interface, not unlike, right, a chat GPT interface, be able to tell if the being or the machine on the other side of the wall was a human or not, based on their responses? Right. So it would seem, again, that the generative AI tools we have today, they're starting to really press those boundaries. And I just want to also say the Turing test, there's been a lot of criticism more recently of whether or not this is even a valid characteristic or a valid way to distinguish a machine from human behavior, right? That because of all the things that we're going to talk about the differences in our humanity. So it's a bit, it is questionable and has been criticized for many reasons as well, but it is notable. And I actually think, even though in an academic way it's been criticized, I think there's an idea that this has taken, there's an embedding of this idea in our collective consciousness that is causing us to kind of see, where can we break AI? Where can we kind of get it to do something that doesn't seem to be human, so that we can show, again, our intellectual superiority, right? So again, though, we're still seeing, we're going to see that these boundaries continue to get pressed. But I think the issue is even bigger than this, because really this intellectual definition is a reductive definition of what it means to be human, right? AI is going to get better and better. It's going to get harder and harder to trick it. But what really does it mean to be human? And as a collective, though, too, part of the reasons this is problematic is, what does this mean for the humanity of mentally disabled people, of those in a coma or in another state where their intellect is not available, right? And using intelligence as a test for humanity brings up a lot of ethical challenges. So when we're talking about leaning into our humanity, what does that mean? Part of it is that we live in a human body, right? Our body is part of the human experience. So what is the body of AI? The machine it lives in, the computer technology, the hardware, right? There are some fascinating questions here as well, like to explore about, as humans take on artificial body parts through medical procedures, right? How does that affect our embodiment, right? And to what extent are we become machine? That is like a whole nother topic that we could talk about for ages as well. I just want to kind of like plant that seed. So part of being human is also having emotions, right? Being able to feel, grieve, be angry, be sad, be happy, even find a sense of fulfillment, right? So that is a key aspect of our humanity. I also believe that being spiritually connected, whatever that looks like for you, whether that is a conventional religious practice or a spiritual practice, meditation, just a connection with the universe, right? There is a part of being human that is essentially part or being spiritual as well. And then having consciousness, which in and of itself is a much debated topic, especially when it comes to intelligence. Consciousness is often thought of as being self-aware, right? So being aware that I am a human or a a self-reflective entity. And often that consciousness is attributed to other organisms as well, as certainly to primates, but often even the simplest level of organisms, things such as shellfish, right, where we can see that they react to pain and otherwise react intelligently to stimuli. So not just like a stimulus response, but can actually, they have a sense of that they're in an environment and that they're a separate entity from that environment. And some philosophers do believe that generative AI could eventually exhibit consciousness. So I think there's just a question here. Are these qualities replicable by AI at some point in the future? Maybe, right? Who knows? But in today's world of readily available tools, it's still very much our humanness that can make authentic connections with other human beings, and that we can have an embodied experience, that we can have that spiritual connection, that emotional connection. And, I just want to say as a context to this, like most philosophers and honestly, most business analysts, in this way, I have more questions than answers, right? I don't appear to or want to pretend to be an authority on this, but what I wanted to do is just get you to be thinking kind of about the bigger picture. And really what I feel is important is to be in some of these questions, to, as we're going about our workday, be thinking about the bigger picture of what does this really mean for us as human beings living on planet Earth. Okay, so from a takeaway, it's like, how can we lean into our more humanness, right? And even if AI at some point passes that Turing test, even if it displays consciousness, it's not going to be human, right? And so I say that not to create a layer of defense, but more to cultivate a sense of gratitude and appreciation for what it means to be human and this human experience that we get to have here. And this also leads us to the next piece, which is really more of a mindset. So we did sort of the philosophical aspect. And now I want to get pretty practical with what are some of the mindsets that we can use to really be more effective and do more work or better work as business analysts. Sorry, nice. I mentioned at the beginning, we've got really bad air quality here today. So it's just making me really thirsty. Okay. So mindset number 3, let it be easier. So we all know, and maybe part of the reason you came today or to this conference was like that that AI tools can help you be more effective and to do better work, right? You've learned all kinds of ways that you can use these tools to think through ideas, research information, consolidate that information much faster than our human brains can. There is so much power in allowing AI to be a co-creative partner with us, to be in dialogue with a tool that can access a bigger set of information than our brains can hold in any one moment, to be in co-creation with it, right? To get some responses and then to use that, run that through our filters of thinking, and then ask some further questions, right? And I will totally admit, I researched some of the ideas that I just presented about the Turing test using Bard AI, right? I had the concepts I wanted to share. I knew what I wanted to say in a big picture, but I wanted to refresh myself on the specifics and on current literature. And I was able to bring a much higher level of insight to that because I was supported by AI. And the research element of that was way easier than it would have been 20 years ago when I was in my philosophy training. I've been lost in books in the library and in the depths of it, I was able to get some really great summarized information that helped me refresh some of that thinking I had done as I built this talk. But it's really easy. And I think it's easy to resist this. And this is why. And this is a mindset kind of belief that a lot of us grew up with. So unless we grew up in extreme wealth, which I did not, I grew up in a kind of lower middle class family. I'm guessing most of the people on this call have not been in like extreme wealth. Our mindsets are hardwired that work equals worth. This means that our very worth as individuals is tied up with our work, our productivity, our output, right? What we show that we can do. And I see this phrase sometimes, like the hands on the keyboard work, right? And I feel it. Like when I was typing up some of these notes for the presentation, like I felt connected. I felt valuable. My synapses were firing. I felt ready to deliver this talk, right? Even being here is like, it's work in the sense that I'm producing something, right? There's a value, an intrinsic value that we get from that sense of productivity. In some ways, though, we can also then equate that sense of value from productivity with our self-worth as a human being, right? And this connection is so deeply embedded that we don't necessarily see it. And so I would encourage you to start thinking about or being aware of where are you experiencing like my ability to create this requirements document, or my ability to do this work, or my time that I spend sitting down at the computer is the part that earns my salary for my employer, from my employer, right? And so this connection can really, really be really deeply embedded in our psyches. And how it comes up is that we can have a resistance to using the tools, and you might not even notice. I find myself knowing sometimes that I should go to Chat GPT to help me outline a video or write an email, and then I'm like, oh no, I can do it so much better myself, or like, oh, that's just going to take more time. Or you might even be wondering, like, what does that mean for my employer if a task that used to take me 2 days now takes me 2 hours, right? So do I need to factor that into my productivity? Do I need to find more things to do to like deserve my salary? Like, what does that mean? And so I really want to encourage us to just cross through this work equals worth mindset, right? And allow let things be easier than they have been in the past. And so watch for when it comes up for you and try to repattern. And instead of our work being our worth, when it comes to the context of our employment, it's our value. It's the value that we can add. It's what we're creating for our employer. It's the output, and the change that we're enabling, right? So looking at value, not in a what hours am I putting in or what work am I doing, but what am I creating? What kind of transformation, what kind of value, what kind of end result, right? And so in along the way as well, just make sure that you're challenging yourself to use the tools to learn how to make your work easier, and embracing that and having gratitude for it and really appreciating it. So really, as a conscious practice, day by day, week by week, finding ways to allow AI to help you. Okay. So that brings us to mindset number 4. And if you have questions, I know we're waiting till the end for questions, but if you do have questions, feel free to get them in. And I'm really excited about having a discussion about this and kind of diving into the topics that land with you the most, in a deeper way. Okay, so mindset number 4 is that the business analyst fundamentals will help you thrive. So I've noticed a tendency in our profession, and this is probably not just our profession, but that when things are new, we have a tendency to throw out everything we thought we knew. So this happened 15, 20 years ago as agile was becoming a thing and a more common practice, right? And we were seeing tension between traditional business analysis practices and agile practices, that oh my goodness, everything I knew about business analysis no longer applies in agile, and I need to refigure everything out. And I actually went through this transition on my own when I was on my first agile project. I had a history of doing things in use cases, and the team wanted user stories. I was like, okay, well, I can't start writing requirements or figuring out what they are until I know how to write a user story. And I literally waited for the book to come in the mail, right, to teach me user stories so that I could start doing the requirements. And that was a really limiting pattern. It stalled me out from doing the work that I knew how to do. And so it took a longer timeline, and it also like diminished my own sense of expertise and my own sense of confidence in my business analysis skills, because it literally felt like everything was changing. So we are in a similar stage here where, again, if we we have this idea that AI will change everything. And again, we've kind of not diminished that. I think it will change things, but it's going to merge over time, right? But so think AI will change a lot of things, right? So what do we need? What I needed when I was in that position in Agile, I needed to trust that my business analysis fundamentals were still essential and would help me thrive. So I needed to know that even though I was not going to create a use case as an output, my use case thinking was still very, very fundamental and very, very necessary. And as I got through working my way through user stories, I figured out like, oh, actually, the user stories are so minute and so disparate and kind of, such a catalog of the requirements. I need to go back to some of my visual modeling tools. I need to go back to writing a few use cases to see how these all thread together and to get the big picture. So I needed to lean on my business analysis fundamentals. Now, this is a visual model of the business analysis skills that we teach at Bridging the Gap. So Bridging the Gap is a training and certification provider, and we teach all of these skills in the Business Analyst Blueprint certification program. And so it's 12 specific techniques along the top here, plus an overarching business analysis process framework with many supporting competencies. Sorry. So if you do want to learn about all of these, we are running a free training session on July 10th, and registration is open for that now. You can find it at bridgingthegap.com. There's hyphens in that /launch. And I did not put it on this slide, but I do have it on my end slide. So if you didn't grab that URL, maybe somebody can share it in the chat, but also I'll have it on my closing slide. But so this is breaking up the skill set into how do we analyze the business process? How do we understand what problem we're trying to solve, right? How do we understand the solution level or what the software is going to do to fulfill a user need? So getting really clear on what the software functionality is. How do we understand the information or data level, meaning what information is our information technology systems going to hold? This is the lifeblood of the organization, right? And how do we understand that at both a conceptual level, a terminology level, and a very detailed data modeling level? And then again, that framework of how do we take a project from beginning to end? None of these skills go away. You might already have them. Lean on them. And I think some of the keys that I want to just highlight in terms of fundamental business analysis skills that are so incredibly important are things like being able to ask good questions. When we think about how to use ChatGPT, what is it? We're asking a question. And I was not able to attend a lot of the talks, but I did catch Emel's talk yesterday, and he was showing, right, these the huge amount of context that you want to provide for ChatGPT to give you a better answer, right? And how much time you might actually invest in creating a prompt as opposed to asking the first question that comes to mind. And it really reminded me of the kinds of information that I would think about providing as context when having a meeting with a business stakeholder or giving a requirement to a technology implementer to make sure that they have the full big picture of what I'm trying to, or what the business is trying to achieve, right? So asking good questions, but also putting those questions in context, because when you have the context, you get better answers. So that is a key business analysis skill to be leaning on. I also think use case thinking. So how can this apply? What would the end user experience look like? There's an opportunity here, not just in how we use these tools as business analysts, right, for our business analyst work, but also how can our organization use these tools? What are the use cases that we could be leveraging these tools in? And that's a conversation that we're starting to have inside our company, as far as what are the key business processes and use cases that are most time intensive. Where can AI provide us value? Who are the in a lot of cases, we're licensing software versus building it. So what are the ways that we are going to look at maybe our customer support system or our shopping cart system or our course delivery system? Like, what are the AI capabilities we might want inside those systems to support our business process and our business goals and essentially our use cases, right? So just thinking through that, what is the end result that when I'm sitting down and working through something, or a customer of ours is sitting down and using something, that we would want that experience to look like? Data modeling obviously is hugely important. So the more structured and well understood your data is, the more valuable it can be used to inform AI or to actually become a data set for your own company's own AI. And then finally, though, business value too, because I think it's so easy to be like, you know, AI being the solution, right? And putting the solution before the problem. Like, what's the problem that we're actually trying to solve here? Right? What would create value for my organization? Is this a business process that AI can make better or more efficient? Or is it something that actually we've got pretty well handled as our human capacities are, right? So, what is the new capability that's relevant and why is this important to our organization? So, asking those questions, because I think the tendency is just like, it's new, it's exciting, let's play with it, let's make it happen, right? As opposed to really having some structured thinking of like, is the end value, the end potential worth it? Right. I'm just going to mute myself for 1 second here while I apologize for that. I just this air quality. I needed to blow my nose. Okay, so I believe I'm back. Please let me know in the private chat if I'm not. Okay, so this leads us to mindset number 5, and we've really been talking through this all throughout. But choosing reflection over urgency. It's been a theme that I've been bringing up. Like, how can we slow down? How can we pause? What's actually most important? And before we close today, I want to get super practical and leave you with a tool that's just going to help embed this new mindset for you, right? Because it's would be really common that you would be experiencing a lot of overwhelm right now. If you attended all 10 or 12 hours of these sessions, you might be feeling the need to do all of the things right now because you are already so far behind, right? This is what I talked about at the beginning, this feeling of everything is changing and I'm behind. And I'm not saying that because everything is changing and you're behind. I'm saying that because whether or not there's an awareness of it, it's probably lurking somewhere, or you maybe heard it somewhere, right? It's lurking behind the scenes. And that sense of I have to do all the things is really this sense of everything's changing and I'm far behind, which does not have to be true. Right. Lots of things are changing and they are unfolding, and you are well established in the game, right? This transformation is going to unfold or over time. We don't have to do everything at once. That's impossible, anyways. And we don't even have to do all the things, right? Some people are going to do some of the things, and other people are going to do other things, right? There's more than enough opportunity for all the things, and we don't have to do all of them. And so this the antidote to this sense of urgency and this sense of doing all the things is that you really prioritize your energy investments. And so I'm going to share one of my favorite post-conference exercises, and I'm actually going to leave a couple minutes for you to do a piece of it so that we can have that as a takeaway. And it's likely you have pages of notes and way too many ideas to implement right now. So here's how you get organized. So I'm going to talk through it kind of slowly, and my idea would be that you would write this in your notes. So just idea, you could create a quick table in whatever notes you're doing, or however you're taking notes. So what are like the 3 or 5 ideas that come up from your conference experience? All the sessions, like not just this session, but all the sessions that you've attended. What are a few of the things, or maybe that you've heard that you feel like you should or might or do want to do? Right? Like for me, one of my ideas is that I want to look at sort of how AI could do some workbook assessment and help support our instructor work in that way. So like that's been something I've been procrastinating on, but it is an idea, right? It's out there. Okay. So what are some of those ideas? And then as you go through those ideas, what is the value of that idea? Right? And the value is really, what is the value that that idea can bring to you personally or to your company? right? What's the potential return, the benefit, the benefit. And you could do, often when I'm doing this kind of quickly, I like to just do high, medium, low, right? So not really complicated, just high, medium, low, 1, 2, 3. And then what's the effort? Is this big or small? And again, high, medium, or low is perfect. Is it a low priority? Is it a high priority? And then this last column is actually key. So this is, as you think about everything you've learned or everything you're experiencing right now, what is actually important to you? So this is a personal criteria. Maybe learning is important to you, right? Maybe becoming an expert in a specific type of technology or coding language or something very specific is actually important to you. Maybe your own ease and efficiency, because maybe you're a consultant, and you know that you could really bill at a much higher hourly rate if you use some of these tools to do work that used to take you way longer, right? So your own sense of efficiency is important. And I can't tell you what this personal criteria is. That's why it's personal, right? But what is actually important to you as you think about your career right now? And once you do this, so get your ideas down, get your value, your effort, any other personal criteria, often, not always, but often just 1 or 2 ideas are going to stand out. They're often going to be high on the value side, relatively low on the effort. So quick wins and really valuable to you personally for some reason. And so obviously, even with like me talking through it rather slowly, like you would want to go back through all your notes and your experiences. And I would spend like a half hour to an hour on this, whether that's tonight or over the weekend, just getting all your ideas together. And this is when especially if I travel for a conference, this is what I do on the plane ride home. And I love plane ride homes for that reason. But if you don't have a plane ride home, which we don't, this is virtual, take some time to actually do it for yourself. Right. And then so you have all the ideas there. And that what's wonderful is then you have this synopsis of all the possibilities. And then you can refer back to that. So you can choose the top 2 or 3 to work on, or the top 1 to work on, and then come back to it in a month or come back to it in 3 months and reevaluate and see what shows up on the list. This is also a really valuable tool to use anytime you start to feel overwhelmed or anxious about all the things you need to do or all the opportunities you have. I find it incredibly calming to get my ideas down in a list and use some meaningful criteria to sort through them. Also forces you to really think about what's important to you, and where you want to go in your career. And then I choose where I'm going to invest my time and energy next. It closes a lot of loops, right? It's very calming to the nervous system. All right, so just to recap the things that we talked about today, letting go of the fear, right? There's a lot of fear out there, whether consciously or intentionally or not. There's a lot of manufacturing of fear, this idea that everything is changing. Lean into your humanity. AI is never going to be a human being, right? It might have the intellectual power of a human being. It might fool that Turing test idea, but it's not going to be human. So what can we do to really bring our humanity forward and see AI as a co-creative intellectual tool and technology that can help expand our thinking? Letting it be easy. So refactoring that whole, our worth is tied to our work and our production, right? It's okay for things to be easier than they were in the past. In fact, it's necessary. It allows us to add more value. Not throwing out our business analysis fundamentals just because everything is changing. They will continue to help you thrive, and choosing to reflect over a sense of urgency. So using a tool that allows you to really intentionally prioritize where you're headed. And with that, I just want to share, always remember that you are in charge of your career. This is one of my core mantras, and it feels like a perfect time to bring this reminder in. You get to be in charge of if and how you adopt AI, of what direction you take your career. You've got all kinds of potential. And I just, the world, like the world needs you to be the most you, right? And so you bringing that intention and that excitement and that passion that we were talking about at the beginning into your career is what's going to make the biggest difference. With that, I have some time for questions. I have our website link here. We have a ton of great resources around the business analysis fundamentals. We do have our new free workshop, or not new, but our free workshop that is available for a limited time through July, as we get ready to open or start the next session of the Business Analyst Blueprint in July. And if you wanted to reach out to me personally, the best way to do that is on LinkedIn. I'm also on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. But messages on LinkedIn are most likely to get through. Okay, so with that, I'm open for questions. Oh, great.
Thank you
Yulia.
very much. Thank you very much for your presentation. I know that I have a home task nowadays, like conference wrap-up exercise. I don't have a plane right back to home, but I have an exercise to do right now. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And I will help you to collect all those questions from the audience. We have some of them, but before we'll start, I personally would like to ask one question that I believe is in mind of a lot of bees nowadays. You told that AI changes everything as well as it's just a new tool. So fear and very direct question, will AI replace business analyst as a role? What is your prediction?
I don't anticipate it replacing business analysts. I think it's, if you see your work as writing requirements, just purely the analysis of requirements, AI is obviously on its way to being able to replace a lot of that. But the human connection piece of like, is this actually valuable for my company, right? And do I have a group of stakeholders aligned on what change we're making and why, and how are we going to leverage it? Like that is a long time from going away. There will be more transformations that happen before that particular skill set is not going to be needed. So I don't personally see it going away. That might be limited thinking on my part, but that's my view as of today.
So we're on the safe side.
Yeah, for sure. We're in a great role because we're both intellectual, but we're also really in connection with other people, right? And so I do think those often are called softer skills. I think PMI calls them power skills. I like that word better. But like those skills are, that's where we need to really, like, how are we thinking strategically? How are we guiding our stakeholders? How are we making those relationships and connecting and collaborating and making sure we're bringing that to the forefront of our roles?
Definitely collaboration that it's not on the eyesight right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and one more question that I'm not able not to ask. I made it on purpose and left this question till the end of this presentation, as I believe it's very important and very huge topic that you will be able to talk about. So no degree will guarantee you will start in a business analyst role.
Mm-hmm.
That's more few junior level business analyst jobs exist. But the average salary for business analysts in United States reaching about 90,000 per year makes this career path very attractive for people. So referring to your book, How to Start a Business Analyst Career, maybe some key steps, game changers, for those who are looking into that direction.
Yeah. So in that instance of, usually it's a mid-career professional who has some professional experience, right? And sometimes I'll see them trying to twist and turn themselves into these entry-level roles that are really too junior for their transferable skills and for their full potential, and also would require a salary cut. And then also they're just seen as overqualified. And so they feel stuck of, I don't have the qualifications for these mid-level roles, but I'm perceived as overqualified for these entry-level roles. And I think that's kind of the tension you're asking about. So what I find is people who do really have professional experience often also do have some transferable business analysis skill experience. So it is a matter of looking back at, like, how did you facilitate meetings? What kind of communication have you done with stakeholders? What sorts of documentation have you created, whether or not it felt like a formal BA deliverable or not? And what kinds of analysis were you doing, right? And so getting a really as deep as possible picture of what transferable skills and experiences you bring to the table. And then in whatever role you're in, starting to do more business analysis. And often the very first thing that pops up is the ability to analyze a business process. That's why we teach that module first in the Business Analyst Blueprint, is because everybody has the opportunity to analyze business process. So it can be the process that you use in whatever role it is. And then you can start to build that experience and that formality. And often, even as you're starting to learn the skills in a formal BA way, it will also then help you go deeper into identifying the transferable skills that you didn't really realize when you were doing business analysis in the past.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I believe for more information, people could read your book, definitely, and they will
Yes,
get even
it is.
more insights.
That strategy is covered in depth in the book. Yeah.
Okay, now questions from the audience. I selected a couple of them from the YouTube and also conference page. So the first one, as the execution of tag becomes commoditied with AI, the people that figure out the what, when, and why are even more critical. Agree this is a boon for the BA profession.
Yes. Yeah, I feel like, was there a question in there that I missed?
That was a question about if you agreeing with that or not.
Yes.
And what are your thoughts?
Yes. So I think, it speaks to what we were talking about a couple questions ago as well, is like the need to lean on like really honing your collaboration, your connection skill, your connection. And also, I will say, to add to that, how can you be on the forefront of figuring out and learning how to leverage the tools to make the more detailed analytical type skill sets and tasks more efficient, so that they are quicker and you need less time to do those things, so you can spend more time with your stakeholders and take on more capabilities there. So I would say that that's the piece I would add to that.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. The next question, how to break perception of BAs to make them less afraid of using AI tools? Many of them have a lot of doubts of quality of results, or even afraid that they will be replaced. Again, replacement topic.
Yeah, I think I'm going to just talk to that first piece of how to help BAs who are still in resistance. And that is where showing them how you're using it, modeling it can be a great, like, showing an example, as just like, look at, here's an example of how I'm doing this and what I'm getting back. And also, I think, like, it doesn't have to be perfect. There's a mindset that if it's not 100% perfect, it's not helpful, right? And I have never taken something right from ChatGPT and like put it on our blog or made it like, there's always this tweaking process that needs to happen. It's like a starting point. And so to me, it's a way to get an 80% starting point draft that I can then rework with and fine tune. And also then often will help me expand my thinking of things that I might not have thought about on my own. So I think just being really honest and clear about that is, like, it doesn't have to be perfect in order to be useful. And so choosing the ways that you use it to allow it to be a starting point or a draft or a co-collaborator versus the end all be all.
Okay, thank you very much. I believe a lot of fears nowadays connected with AI.
Yeah, that's why I opened up
because
with that
a lot of questions
right?
were about that one.
Yeah. And when we're in fear, right? When we're in fear, we can't be curious because we are so concerned with our safety. And that is like a fundamental part of being human. That's not anything to do with AI specifically, but anytime we feel unsafe, where we block our creative thinking, we block our full connection, our ideas. And so, like, that is the first thing, is to feel safe, right? Help people feel safe. And so not spreading some of the fear mongering kind of language as well. And instead helping people see you're always going to be valuable, and this is a tool that can help you. So really providing some containers and and support for people who are really nervously dipping their toe in the water. Yeah.
Okay. We have one more question, also somehow related to fear, but another one. How to navigate privacy concerns with using AI when this is hosted on a central server in a country outside my jurisdiction?
Yeah, that is a question that I'm in as well. So, we had a mastermind a couple weeks ago, and I was like, I really want to explore some of these proprietary processes and how ChatGPT could help us. But like, am I actually sharing then my proprietary information that then becomes part of the brain, right, of it in some way? And so I don't have a clear answer for that. The answer that I was given, that I am sitting with at this moment, I'm not going to say it's the answer, was just your like, how did it was like, your secret sauce is always going to be in your delivery of your programs, right? Or your delivery. For me, it was like our delivery of our programs. Like, nobody can steal your framework and make it theirs, right? Like, you're always going to have something unique and above and beyond whatever you might put into that tool. But that is not, I'm sitting with that because there's a line there. And especially if you're talking about organizational information, there's a whole security discussion to be had, and what information can you legally and within your company's permission put into ChatGPT as context, because we're not really quite sure what's being done with that. Yeah, it's a fair question.
So what we could advise people over here, that is to keep in mind that these organizational company informations need to be checked before putting in those AI tools.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely
Okay.
check with your organizational standards first.
Okay, I believe that is the last question that we covered. Thank you very much. Thank you for answers and for your presentation.
Thank you so much for having me and for helping facilitate everyone and everyone else who has been part of organizing this great conference. Thank you so much.
That was a pleasure.
Yeah.